It's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Nice to be back after a day away. A lot of us had a day off yesterday. Thanks again, as we say, to all the men and women through the generations, all the way back to George Washington and them that have done what they've done to keep us doing what we do. So hope you enjoyed the holiday wherever you might have been. A lot of food, a lot of travel. A lot of sitting around doing nothing for some people. I tried to do as much yard work as possible, but then it rained a lot. So I did what I could. How was the drive to Tennessee?
A lot of back roads. Obviously, I-40 in
still.
Nashville still not in great shape, so you have to get off of the interstate a little early. Go through Newport, Tennessee, which beautiful town, but at night a little scary because there's just nothing there, and the roads aren't.
Are you worried about like bears and snakes?
Just driving off the road, very windy roads. Okay. It's dark, you know. But I've made it a couple times, so I'm no stranger to it.
Okay.
I just didn't want to scare my girlfriend Mira off. This is her first time going to Jamestown, Tennessee.
Okay.
I don't know how many of these small towns you've ever been in your life. It's probably the smallest town you've ever been in. And the road there it could be a little scary because like you're driving through wooded areas basically.
Sure.
For 4 of the 6 hours you're in the car.
Did you see any bears?
I didn't see any bears.
No bears this time.
Not this time.
That's too bad.
But we had fun. It's a fun weekend.
Later, we'll have Jay versus the Internet, which is basically Elijah stacking the deck against me with over-under picks and different prognostication type
Well, it doesn't
things.
phase the Internet, I'll tell you that much.
But I think you should probably have one today that's over-under number of times I say Monday, even though I just correctly said Tuesday to begin the program.
You correctly said it this time, but we know that you do have a minor tendency to forget the name of the show sometimes. So
I've done that.
With a shortened week.
I've called you Tyler before.
And you're not the only one.
All right.
I get confused for Tyler a lot.
Yeah.
Based on voice.
You have Tyler doesn't have the same beard.
He does not. But our voices sound similar enough to where I've had, true story, I've had interactions in town where somebody, asks what I do, and I say, I host a sports talk radio show. Like, oh, are you Tyler Head? And every now and then I'll be like, yeah, I am. And I will misrepresent myself because it's fun.
So you're just a liar.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Well, somebody has
I won't run from that grind.
That's fair. We got a lot to get to on today's program. SEC spring meetings are taking place as we speak down in the Gulf, or not in the Gulf, on the Gulf, along the Gulf.
If they're doing it in the Gulf, that'd be a lot more fun.
Yeah, that'd be more fun, actually. Get a big party barge. Would they get as much done?
I was thinking more of a submarine.
No.
Then you're really in the Gulf.
No. I don't think, part of me wants to go on a submarine and part of me doesn't.
I don't know how I'd feel. It's one of those things I wouldn't know until I'm there.
Yeah.
In theory, I'd be like, oh, that would be a really cool experience. I've never been in a submarine.
I've never been in one either, other than like when I was a little kid, the old submarine 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride at Disney World. But you know what? It didn't really go underwater.
And you could leave. Like you could open the exterior.
You felt like you were underwater. But when you saw it from the outside, you're like, that's not underwater. Now, but they're doing that. The football coaches got there today. Obviously, I don't know to them, Elijah, what job one is this week. Them, the football coaches. I'm going to go out on what I think is a rather sturdy limb and say 9-game conference football schedule. But I still believe that we're not going to arrive there this week, if only because I don't think we're going to arrive at a format for the college football playoff. And those things do absolutely intertwine. They are not necessarily even running on parallel tracks. I think at times you're in the same train, if you want to use that analogy. Greg Sankey, rather vocal last night about a number of things, including the preference it feels right now, or at least the lean towards 16 in the college football playoff, but with automatic spots rather than just 16 at-large bids. I think Elijah and I differ slightly on the automatic bids. I think we both also, though, are resigned to the fact, and I don't want to speak for you too much, that maybe complaining about this too much just really isn't going to matter.
It's not.
I know from my point of view, that's where I am. Like, would I prefer 16? Yes. Would I prefer 16 to be seeded based on where they finished the season ranked? Yes, I would. And ironically, if you do the 4 for the Big Ten and SEC, and really what they're talking about now, if you haven't been paying too much attention, 4 for the SEC, automatic bids, 4 for the Big Ten, 2 for the Atlantic Coast Conference, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the group of 5/6, because, RIP, old Pac-12. New Pac-12 is going to be part of the G6. And then 3 at-larges. If you went straight seeding, the Southeastern Conference might actually, in some years, get more than if you are limiting yourself to the 4, with the ability, obviously, to be part of those at-larges. So,
but would any other conference agree to let you have more at-larges if you're already getting 4?
I don't think they can stop you. Can they? I mean, are the at-larges going to go to schools that are not in the Big Ten and SEC?
Because at that point, what's the point of the Big 12 and ACC playing football?
Yeah, well, and they, from what I read, at least in one piece this morning, the ACC and the Big 12 are lobbying for 3 each automatically.
At this point, get what you can get.
Which would leave one at large. And then that one at large, you almost feel like if Notre Dame wins 10 games, it's going to always go to Notre Dame.
Yep. Yep.
So it'll just be like a parentheses at the beginning of the season.
Notre Dame if they win 10 games.
So I don't know if they'll get that. Greg Sankey is kind of hacked off at the ACC and the Big 12 for what he viewed as coordinated messaging last week when it came to those two commissioners kind of taking a swipe, I guess, saying what we need to do, what's good for the game, and not what's necessarily good for our conference. And I think Greg took a little umbrage with that, man. Like, I've been trying to do good for the game for a while here. And somehow, I will defend him a little. He's become the villain to including ironically enough, he's become the villain in the eyes of a lot of Big Ten fans and supporters.
Which would be misdirected anger because him and Tony Petitti have been in lockstep.
Yeah. And
to get these changes done.
It's as if the Big Ten, the Men in Black thing, we talk about that a lot, the memory eraser. They've just forgotten the Kevin Warren years. Where that man, single-handedly, you and I have made the analogy. He didn't stab people in the back. He walked up and shook hands with them and then pulled his knife out and stabbed him right in the gut, man.
And invited them to do so via the alliance. He gave them an invitation that said, hey, come join my party. I will have a dagger. Don't ask why I'm carrying this dagger.
Right.
And then they show up to the party, and they're shocked to learn that the man holding the dagger decided to stick it
right in him. Right.
And kill him.
Right in him, man. And it's as if they've forgotten that entirely. Tony Petitti, at least, is trying to, I think, rebuild some trust from those who realized that was a bad idea. And the alliance was always a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how those guys got hoodwinked, I'm really spite is a powerful and often blinding motivator. And that's more than anything else what that was. But, and I'm not trying to say anybody should be vilified here when it comes to the new college football playoff format, but why doesn't Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, take more of Greg Sankey's arrows? And I'm not saying he should or shouldn't. It's more of a metaphorical and rhetorical question. Like, what has Greg Sankey done? Is it just because the SEC has more often than not just been that much more successful and people are tired of it? I think that is the bulk of the anger that gets directed towards Greg Sankey, and people are like almost mad that the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference is looking out for the Southeastern Conference as job one. What are that's like saying, how come the principal of my school is looking out for my school? Why isn't he looking out for the other school first, or something to that effect?
I think at this point, too, since the SEC and Big Ten have kind of assumed a lot of the power, too, it's like if that principal then not only is in charge of your school, but is going to be in charge of the stuff that the other schools in your county or district get, right? So it's like the one
But you're not
principal.
the superintendent yet, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there is no superintendent. Yeah, the superintendent is vacant, and one principal of the school district says, you know what? Me and this other principal are going to take over, and for days in which we allow students more PE time, our two schools will get an extra 2 hours of PE time and fun time, and you guys only get 2, right? Like, because now the optics have shifted.
And also we get an extra chocolate milk at lunch.
Yeah, they get extra chocolate milk, and they get more ice cream days. And so I wouldn't be, I can empathize with the other schools that say, oh, yeah, now you've taken control of the sport, and you're giving your school or the school district, now you're giving your school all the fun benefits and giving us scraps. I can empathize with that type of.
I can too. I can empathize. I will give you that. I do empathize. I don't necessarily sympathize.
I synthesize. Make it funky in here.
But look, I think we're headed to 16, and I think we're going to have automatic qualifiers. And there was a congressman today from Pennsylvania, which is interesting to me because
you're in Big Ten.
And not only that,
and ACC,
right? Yeah, and Penn State's pretty good right now. Penn State's doing okay, but basically accusing the Big Ten and Southeastern Conference of collusion. Now, again, collusion has to be proven. And collusion has to be proven in a sense that the harmed parties had no knowledge of what the harming parties were doing. And I'm not a lawyer, Elijah Campbell. I'm a talk show host, and I'm a husband and a father. But it certainly sounds to me like whether they like it a whole lot or not, the Atlantic Coast Conference and the Big 12 Conference know exactly what's happening and why. So I'm going to go out on another sturdy limb here and say I don't think they could prove collusion in an American court of law. I may be wrong because I'm not a lawyer. But
I don't know what the fine print on the sheets they signed looks like, but
they signed them last year.
They signed them. And
they're about to sign some more. That's the way it looks to me.
Maybe reluctantly?
But, yeah. There's no question that they're, yes. No question.
I don't know if there's really any other option.
I don't think they're all gung-ho, like, woohoo, this is awesome. But I think it's better than the alternative, which was you're going to be playing in something kind of like the Weed Eater Bowl all the time, if not. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. What about the Outback Bowl? Nope. What about the Old Peach Bowl? Nope. Texas Bowl? Sure, why not? So, I think they'll be okay. But we'll get into what else is going on around the Southeastern Conference meetings. Obviously, baseball bids out fully yesterday. SEC did all right now, and ACC did all right in that one. And there's two in-state hosting sites. One of them is the hardest draw, in my opinion, of the 16 regionals that will be played in the coming days. Newsflash, it ain't the one in Clemson, which isn't an easy one.
Nope.
But the one in Conway.
I think that one's the region of death.
That's number one on the list, in my opinion. David Cloninger joining us in about 15 minutes on baseball and softball, some of the latest around what the future of Carolina baseball could look like. We'll do that for you. Again, we have some interactive fun throughout the day. Do we have any interactivity on the other side? Not yet.
We can.
We can? All right, let's do some then. Before we talk to David, I'll let Elijah decide. Stay tuned. We're introducing new things now that the summer is basically here. Memorial Day means start of summer. That means new stuff, and I get surprised, which is, again, Elijah's just rigging every system he can against me.
It's my favorite thing to do.
You're listening to the Postgame Show. 19 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on. Jay and Elijah with you. David Cloninger of the Post and Courier coming up in a bit. Lots to get to around the CFP formatting. How that goes hand in hand with the potential of the Southeastern Conference to go to 9 conference games, which right now the Big 12 and Big 10 do. ACC and SEC still sitting at 8. Haven't heard a lot of chatter, by the way, about the ACC wanting to go to 9 conference games.
I think it'd behoove them if they want to crown a clear champion.
Yeah.
Because them, like the SEC and Big Ten, have just inflated to the point of having an Indiana happen, which is a team that's really good, but maybe having their record maybe not fully indicate how good they are because they just get a good draw on a year-to-year basis.
They did. Indiana's schedule, you and I looked it up, it's a little tougher this year.
A little bit.
A little bit. Greg Sankey also taking issue with Nebraska's cancellation of the Tennessee series.
I do agree with Greg on that.
Good for Greg. Yeah.
Absolutely should.
All right. I'm turning it over to you now for a new, is this a new segment? Is this what we're, okay. Again, I'm not in the dark.
Because you know the premise.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do for the summer was really test Jay's memory, which is can be good, can be scary, and if the results are bad, then we might have to get him to see a doctor, maybe at the men's clinic. I don't know.
I don't know if I like where this is going, but let's find out.
This is
I've stepped in it now.
We might scare Jay.
Stepped in it now.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a random Gamecock victory, a football victory, and I'm going to give you props for that game that I have set. Now, you're not picking them and seeing what happens later because, again, these have already been played. But these are statistical benchmarks to see if you remember if the players involved in these memorable Gamecock games are over under those statistical benchmarks.
I like where this is headed. There's good news and bad news here real quick. The good news is I've been to and I've been a part of a lot of Carolina games. Football, basketball, baseball. The bad news is I've been to a lot of Carolina football,
which makes you the perfect subject for this test. You're the perfect subject for it.
So we'll see.
And it gives people, it gives you, the listener, a chance to think back into your memory bank and see if you can remember whether or not these players are over under.
Where are you drawing your timeline? Like, in other words, that you're going to go back as far as what year?
It's information that I can just find. Now,
no. I mean, like, are you going to, because I've been going to games at Williams-Brice or Old Carolina Coliseum since I was like 4 or 5.
Yes.
But quite honestly, I'm not really going to want you to ask me a question about, like, how many yards Clarence Williams had against Wake Forest in 1977 or something.
It'd be a little harder because that information's not as available.
Or how many assists
really go back
Mike
and
Doyle
find.
might have had against, Notre Dame in a basketball game or something.
Right.
I might not get that.
It could be a little harder.
I could guess.
You could always guess.
Like if you want to ask me an Alex English question.
Of course. And for Alex, a lot of his point totals were a lot more public knowledge.
But again, I was very...
Yeah.
I don't want to make Alex seem old, but he is older than me.
Yes, he is. Can confirm.
He was in college when I was like 5.
Which makes him a little older.
A little bit.
A little bit.
All right, let's do it.
Can you remember as far back as 2001? I can.
Yes, I can do 2001.
I was young, but I was
Although
around.
I will tell you, if you're going to ask me about that Alabama game, I may have had a couple.
Well, it's not the Alabama game, but I am asking you about the Georgia game.
Okay.
In 2001.
Okay. That was in Athens.
Can you remember the score?
16-10?
No. But you're in the ballpark. It was a very low-scoring game. I don't know what the over-under for that game was, but it would have.
I remember low scoring. What was the final?
14-9.
14-9. That was close.
14-9.
It's close.
Quarterback Phil Petty had a pretty solid day.
Yeah.
Did he go over under 200.5 passing yards?
I'm going to go under.
Jay Phillips says under. And he would be correct.
Yeah.
193. He was close.
Yeah.
He was close. They did go for $193.
Brian Scott in the corner of the end zone?
That would be correct. Brian Scott. That was one of his 3 catches that day.
Yeah.
30-yard score.
How much time was left?
Or 30 yards for the game.
Oh yeah, but when he do you have the full box score? Does it say like the time left when he caught that touchdown in the corner?
Let's see. He scored that touchdown with 1 minute 22 seconds left.
Yeah.
16-yard reception.
Yeah, that's a good play.
9 plays, 67 yards.
It was a good play. It was a good play. Phil Petty, man. R.I.P. Phil, and such a steady leader, really was. He was never going to be an NFL guy, and that's fine. Such a steady leader.
You need those to complete the turnaround that the program had.
Just
in
so
the late
good
90s,
at what he did.
early
Just so and just I talk about that Alabama game. I was like, Phil's going to win this. They're going to win this game. You could just tell. Like it's just body language or something. I don't know, but. What's funny about that game, Elijah, and those of you who can go find it on YouTube or something, right after that touchdown is scored, okay? I've never forgotten this. The camera, because you know how TV it works. They'll like show people cheering, and then they'll because for every fun thing, there's like somebody that hates what just happened, and they pan to a young co-ed at Sanford Stadium. And I mean this sort of pun intended, like looks like she just watched her dog get run over. And I've never forgotten the look on that guy. It's quick, but I've never forgotten that. And because it's like, wait, like you can process it and it's a flash of a shot, but like the look on her face is, I was told when I entered the stadium that we were going to win. That kind of look. Like, this is not at all.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, I did not sign up for what just happened. But that was a good game. That was a good game. And I'm telling you, man, Carolina should have beaten Georgia 3 years in a row. They should have beaten them again in 2002, and a couple things went wrong. That was the fumbleception that I call.
The fumbleception.
David Pollock. And then Andrew Pennick, Big Andrew, fumbling that ball probably inside the 2 into the student section end zone. At least, now the student section end zone. Oh, man. That's a tough game.
Our friend Ryan Brewer comes in football season. Brews days.
Yeah.
Over under 85.5 rushing and receiving yards in this game.
Wow. Just rushing and receiving, not returning as well. You know what? Let me go over. Over.
All right. Over would be correct. He did have 91 rushing plus receiving yards. Bonus question.
Okay.
How many of those were receiving yards?
Ooh. Let's say 50.
You'd be incorrect. All 91.
Oh, wow.
He had 3 carries for 0 yards, according to this box score.
Wow.
The leading rusher in that game was Phil Petty.
Wow.
14 carries for 21 yards. Derek had 13 on 8 carries.
Jeez. It was an ugly game, too, man.
Carolina wasn't running the ball.
No, it was an ugly game. Georgia was stout on defense.
Very much so.
As they typically,
very much so.
are. Yeah.
Now, another fun kind of trick question. Georgia quarterback David Green over under 1.5 interceptions in that game.
Did Carolina have 2? I'm going to go over.
You're going to go over?
Yeah.
You'd be correct that Carolina had 2, but David Green only threw one of them.
Okay, yeah.
Corey Phillips threw the other. Corey Phillips was 0 for 2 for Georgia in that game and 1 interception. He completed more passes to the Gamecocks than he did.
Yeah, I thought Carolina had 2, but okay. That is a trick question. I should have thought about that.
I even thought when the sentence left my mouth that it was a trick question, I was like,
you just gave it away.
I gave it away.
Yeah. Should have thought about that.
You should have. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, it's good.
Someone should make that a song.
So do these count for any of my other stats, or this is a completely independent
This will be
exercise?
completely independent, no.
Geez.
I know you're going to really want this to go towards Jay versus the internet, but that's not how this works.
All right. Yeah, maybe next time. That was fun.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good trip down memory lane.
I'd love to go 2 out of 3 every time, but something tells me eventually.
I'd love to go 5-0 for you.
Yeah. I'd like to go 5-0 for you on a recorded message. All right, David Cloninger on the other side. He'll try to go 5-0 for us, talking some baseball, softball, more Gamecock storylines. It's the Postgame Show. Time to talk a little Gamecocks with our very good friend David Cloninger. Welcome back in on this Tuesday. Jay and Elijah with you. We'll get back into some of the info and intel coming out of Destin as the SEC meetings are underway. But we'll talk to DC first, and time permitting, David's going to hang out with us a little bit longer than normal today, till the end of the hour. We might talk about the Braves bullpen.
That's when he hangs up.
We might not. How you doing?
Well, I was doing great to that last little comment from Elijah there. You know, if you want to ruin my day, just come over and kick the dog or something.
No,
you know,
I don't want to do that.
We're dog friendly.
Yeah, we're very dog.
I say this as someone whose favorite team also blew 2 even bigger leads. They actually blew 2 leads of 4 runs or more this weekend, with a chance to get within 4 games of the division lead. So.
Well, with all due respect, nobody expects your team to be any good.
Oh.
You know, we got a higher standard down south, you know.
I'll let you guys just figure the rest of that one out now at this point. All right, let's get into this before this devolves into anything we don't need. Let's start, David.
I might go kick the dog.
Yeah,
now.
you know, I don't mean to go pain after pain, but let's do talk about the reality. Ashley Chastain Woodard's softball team had a fantastic year. You and I were talking earlier, though. It may well be remembered for one half of an inning that did not go their way and really set them up for disaster in Game 3. But bottom 7, up 3 at home, the visiting team, but at home, and didn't get it done. I called it a smash and grab for what the Bruins did that afternoon.
Yeah, it's unfortunate and it's unfair just because it was such a tremendous season and really rebuilt a lot of hope going forward for the softball team. It was a great team, and I know that there's going to be a lot of great teams going forward. It's just when you're that close to grabbing it, you want to go ahead and do it. And unfortunately, it kind of gets tossed on the pile of like, man, how is the season going to be talked about? And you say, well, again, unfortunately and unfairly to what this team did, it's going to be remembered for what you didn't do, not for what you did. And, you know, around South Carolina, you're kind of used to that from time to time, at least until a team does get it done. But it's like, hey, you know, what do you remember about the 1984 football season? I doubt the first thought in your mind was that they won 10 games for the first time. And when you think of the 97 men's basketball season, I doubt the first thing that popped into your mind was they won the SEC, or still the only time.
Yeah.
You think of Navy, you think of Coppin State, and now for this season, it's like, one out away. I mean, one out, and just couldn't get it done. But a tremendous season, you know, not taking anything away from what they did accomplish. And, you know, you hope that they do get back to this point next year and get it done. And then it's like, hey, you got to crawl before you can walk. But it's just like, man, you just never know when this situation is going to come around again.
I think one thing I thought of yesterday, David, or Sunday rather, you know, when watching the game after it ended, as close as they even got, even in the bottom of the 6th, when you get 2 balls to the warning track, it's obviously a heartbreaking way to lose with what happened on Saturday and Sunday. But I think one of the first things I thought of was I think they'll be back. You know, with a coach who in her first year did what she did. And did so by doing what a lot of successful programs do and turning things around in short term, and that's relying on the transfer portal. I think she proved that she can bring in the talent necessary to win at this level. How much do you think is sustainable for her to be able to get them back to this point here really soon and then maybe break through that barrier to be able to get themselves into Oklahoma City?
Well, 2 huge advantages, Elijah, is that she does have a good chunk of the team coming back, specifically the 2 hitters in the middle of your lineup with Ariana Rhodey and Lexi Winters. They'll both be here, and you do have some other experience to rely on, like Jory Hurd, who really pitched phenomenally in the regionals. And then you've got some others that are part of this team that will be coming back as well. So that's the good part. Another good part, there were a lot of recruits in the stands at the regionals and supers this weekend, or maybe taking a look around South Carolina. With that kind of success, you know, it's like, well, hey, South Carolina's going to look a little more appealing to me now. And especially I was able to see them in that kind of charged atmosphere. That can only help. So those are really good things. You know, that Ashley came in. I mean, I admit I had my doubts about saying, hey, you know, it's great you're bringing 6 of your players from Charlotte with you, but, you know, that was in the AAC. I mean, are they going to be successful in the SEC? It's a big step. Well, they were. So that's a testament to her coaching and a testament to what she can do. And you got to figure, that's going to continue. So you just got to go out there and start getting some talent to fill in the holes you lost, because you look at it just from a X's and O's standpoint, they kind of lost the whole left side of the field. Left field, third base, shortstop. And it's like, ooh, boy, especially at third base, you need a plus defender, which Ella Chansey was. Now you got to go find another one. But she knows the game. She knows the portal, and I have no doubt she'll play it.
Let's stay with that theme, but switch it to the other diamond sport, David. When it comes to refilling the roster, we don't know yet exactly who's going to be leaving from Gamecock baseball. I do think we're probably 99% certain that the coaching staff is going to remain intact. We do know Bo Hollins is going to be back. We now know KJ Scobie is going to be back. Ethan Petrie and Nathan Hall will be high draft picks, so you're going to replace them. Looks like maybe you get a couple of catchers back. But where are we right now as Paul Maneri tries to hit his own version of reset with this program?
I mean, really, Jay, I mean, you look at everybody kind of but Scobie and Hollins, and then maybe Talmadge LaCroix if he's healthy enough, and say, okay, is everyone else considered expendable? That's maybe a bad term to use, but saying if these guys come back, will they actually play? There are some guys they can rely on specifically from a pitching standpoint. And when you say like, the players that have already jumped into the portal, maybe none of them were going to play much next year. They weren't very good this year. Well, really, outside of four players, Petrie, Hall, Scobie, and Hollins, nobody really played well this year. So you do look at it and say, do you think you can do better? Because you're going to have to get them in here and coach them up. And from a pitching standpoint, I didn't see too much coaching improvement going on throughout the year. So we'll see what happens. Looking at, I think it's the rough numbers now. They've got, I think it's 7 high schoolers, 9 JUCO players, and a transfer from Louisiana Monroe, who is a pitcher, already ready for next year. So that's a good chunk.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, you're still going to have to go out and get some more, depending on the roster limit, depending on how much NIL money you have, and just try to get in. I mean, there's been years, I think it was 2 years ago, they brought in, it was around 50 players for fall practice, knowing you could only have 35 on the roster, but you'd rather have too much than not enough. So I'm anticipating that may be what they do here, to say get in as many players as you can and try to find as many answers as you can during those 6 weeks of fall practice.
And then in terms of building this roster right now, obviously there's going to be a mass exodus of players. That's just kind of what happens when you have the season you had. But just going through like some of the players that you mentioned are coming back next year, and the freshmen and the Louisiana Monroe transfer. What about the freshman class, I guess, specifically, do you think has a chance of any of those guys to maybe make an impact right away? Because you look at Auburn and Georgia in the last 2 years when they made their turnarounds, they relied on a lot of either freshmen or players that returned to make really big leaps.
Well, Paul Maneri's been saying that he really likes the talent in the high school class. I believe he called it outstanding at the SEC tournament there. I can't say that I know enough about any of them to say what kind of players they'll be. I don't really follow baseball recruiting that much for a simple reason, it's not really worth it to get to know a baseball recruit because they might get drafted before they ever play here, So it's like I'll talk about it when they get here has always been my philosophy. So I know, and I'll start it off here, that recruiting class rankings are never the end-all, be-all of a class, just because recruiting class rankings don't take into account transfers and JUCOs, which USC is going to be very heavy on this year. That said, the 7 players that are in the high school class are ranked 99th in the country. So, okay, but that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. You'd much rather see a much higher number beside that name, but that doesn't mean anything on the surface. You're not going to know until they get in here and play, but I will say that looking at them, it's got a local flavor, and there's another one of them Cromer boys coming in, and, that's a Cromer on a Gamecock baseball team is usually very, very good news. I'm like, man, it's like they're talking in Dave Chappelle about the Wayans brothers. You know, they're like, there's more. Yeah, there's another Cromer, and he's coming to South Carolina. So look forward to getting to know him.
DC's going to hang out with us for a couple more minutes on the other side. A few other things around baseball that we'll discuss, and again, maybe the Braves bullpen, but probably not. You're listening to the Postgame Show. All right, welcome back. Final few minutes of our first hour. SEC meetings info next hour. Plus, we're gonna steal from a show and play a little word game next hour. That'll be fun.
I love stealing.
David can play along if he wants to. You have to listen. You won't be on the phone at that point. DC with us, David Cloninger on the beat for the Post and Courier, covering the Gamecocks. David, by now, thousands and thousands of Carolina baseball fans have read what John Whittle published on the Big Spur last week, and a lot of folks have been discussing it since then. I'm not going to get you to rehash a lot of it. John did like you guys do. He's a good reporter, as you well know, and went in search of answers as to how South Carolina had an historically bad baseball season. Where are we? I mentioned earlier to you, I think we're 99%. That's just me kind of being conversational. 99% sure there won't be a coaching change. But what more might you be hearing about Paul and Jeremiah Donati meeting, assessing, and deciding what the future looks like?
Well, Jay, as for John Whittle is the best reporter on this beat. And not just in baseball, for everything. In baseball, his knowledge is unmatched. So I have no doubt believing every word in that story is true. As for the other thing, I think everybody knows by now. Everybody's just maybe grasping at a hopeful lifeline. If they haven't announced anything by now, they're not going to. And the fact is that you don't announce when a coach is staying.
Right.
You don't do that.
Right.
So you haven't heard anything. If they were going to do something, it would have been before he started end-of-season meetings, because then why at the point of having end-of-season meetings telling players where they stand, if they want to come back, if they need to come back, and then you're going to make a move and you got to call them all back a couple of weeks later and say, hey, by the way, I'm not coming back, so do what you want. That doesn't make any sense. And surely Jeremiah knows that. Surely everybody knows that. So, again, I don't know if it was ever really a consideration outside of a few flustered, frustrated, angry tweets during the Florida series.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have never heard anything to that effect. So it is what it is. There are a lot of problems with this team this year. I know that there are some things that, at least if I was in charge, would raise my eyebrows a little bit and say, all right, now this stuff can maybe be excused as like, oh, that's coaching preference. I don't want to do that. And maybe you can't hold them liable for it. But there's a chunk in there. It's like, that may need to be looked at. Yeah. So who knows what's going to happen? I'm obviously Jeremiah's in Destin this week at the meetings, but again, I've heard nothing to suggest anything is coming. And again, if they were going to do it, they'd have done it by now. So yeah, it's year two, full speed ahead.
Less than a minute here, so just real quick, in terms of money for roster recruitment, retention, et cetera, significant upgrade from what we're used to around here?
Absolutely, and it was big this year as well. There's going to be even more. They're front-loading it to try to get ahead of the house settlement, which is what a lot of teams are doing. So money will not be an issue. The issue will be how a coach determines how good a player is and not have to overpay for that talent.
Yeah. All right, real quick question then for you. You think the SEC is going to 9 conference games, and will they decide that this week? I do, and then they'll go ahead and announce it, and you just hope you get a good draw. But who knows what's going to happen? The SEC's never been great about saying, "Oh yeah, South Carolina is a member of this conference." So we'll see what it is, and you hope you get Vanderbilt. Yeah, appreciate the extra time. Sorry we didn't get into more of the Braves. Maybe
darn the luck.
Maybe another.
He really wanted to
another time as they go to Philadelphia tonight. He is David Cloninger, DCPNC on Twitter, postandcourier.com. Make sure you sign up for David's Gamecocks newsletter. Good stuff in there each and every week. Appreciate you, man. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hour 2 coming up. More from the SEC meetings in Destin. This is the Postgame Show. Love telling you about Cato's Power Equipment. Got to use a lot of my Cato's Power Equipment, actually, this weekend. Wanted to use more of it, but it rained, and then I didn't get the chance to. But in all seriousness, if you love doing yard work, look, maybe you don't love it, but it's a part of the routine, right? Especially for you, the homeowner. Get into Cato's. I've made this analogy before, and I'll make it again. It's like buying a suit at a big box store off the rack or going to a tailor and having it expertly fitted. Yeah, maybe both can suit your needs, but man, when it's just right for you, you know it's even better for what you want to do. And that's what Ben and Matt and the crew at Cato's can do. You tell them what kind of yard you have, what kind of work you like to do, what kind of things you need to do, and let them match you up with the great Toro, Steel, Gravely equipment they've got in stock right now. Showroom looks fantastic, been completely redone. Stop by and see them. Whether you do it for yourself, you do it for a living. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, Cato's Power Equipment. Four o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Halftime show.
Unbelievable.
This is a load of barnacles.
You know what's funny? You know why I said that right then? And I didn't do it on purpose, but I was thinking to myself, oh, good, you said Tuesday.
And then you just completely relapsed.
You're a monster.
I'm also disappointed in myself. Welcome back in, by the way. It's the Postgame Show. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Those are all proven fact.
One of those has been, well, I've been Elijah Campbell for 30 years now, but this being the Postgame Show has been a fact for almost 2 years.
Thank you. Where was I? Anyway, I also feel badly because I promised to bring my co-host some leftover barbecue that I made this weekend and a couple of really good smoked Jamaican jerk wings, like whole wings. I had 2 left over. It's only 2, so it's not a huge treat.
It's a sample. It's a good sample.
And they're still sitting in my refrigerator in a bag, ready to go. They're wrapped up nice, and I blew it. So I'm having all of a sudden here for as well as I did in the Gamecock over/under statistical quiz last hour, getting 2 out of 3. One was, well, there were 2 out of 3. I've also had I've said the halftime show instead of the postgame show, and I forgot to bring you some delicious smoked meats.
A couple of errors have.
So I apologize. Do you want me to? If you want to sing for a minute, or I can go home and back in about 20 minutes and get it for you.
That's true.
Because I do live right down that way, so it's not that far.
I'll just pick them up from you tomorrow.
Okay. They'll still be good. I had a friend text me and say, I need your recipe for how you make barbecue because, I'm not trying to, it's good. It's good. But I don't really have a recipe. It's just a matter of patience, and I will tell you, you need to just really make sure you season your butt or shoulder, whatever you like to call it. Same cut, basically. And then just don't mess with it. I'll tell you, you want the secret. By the way, if you do it at home, and a lot of you that do, like a big slab of meat at home on a regular basis, the secret is get yourself a quality meat thermometer that you insert and keep in the meat the whole time. They got some fancy ones these days, kids, Bluetooth and such. I have one. Game changer. Game changer. Because you're not guessing or hoping, and maybe you have one of those really old ones, that you just stick in like a big, thick sewing needle, and you don't know how good it is or whatever. So invest in something that is accurate.
Yes.
And then, however you like to season it, that's fine. I would urge you to put a lot of salt on it, maybe over salt it. Because especially if you have like an 8, 9, 10 pound meat, it's going to be tough to over salt it.
Right. It's a try to over salt.
You can put a lot of salt on there, and then just whatever you like, whatever your favorite dry rub is, or whatever else. And then just again, patience. That's
patience is the biggest ingredient.
Yeah. But the game changer is the thermometer, not really the flavor. Because again, you can make whatever you want.
Well, it just makes your job easier.
Yeah. But I do apologize for not bringing you the meat that I promised I was going to bring. That's on me.
I'll see you tomorrow.
So if you want to yell at me, now's the time.
I'll spare you. Instead, we're just going to have Nick laugh at you.
Thank you, Nick. Anyway, SEC meetings going on. I don't know what they're eating down there on the Gulf.
Probably something really good.
Yeah.
I saw Paul Feinbaum on the beach doing a hit on TV, and so I'm sure he's probably being hooked up pretty well.
Yeah, Paul's doing all right. That's good. Good for Paul. The biggest topic, in my opinion, well, it's, again, we mentioned it earlier, it's twofold. And we just touched on it with David Cloninger at the end of the last hour. Will the Southeastern Conference go to 9 games in the football schedule? And is that decision either predicated upon a decision on the college football playoff format, or at least joined up with in some form or fashion? Because with the CFP format, because I think Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, well, the Big Ten already has 9. So for the Big Ten perspective, I think they're looking at it like, all right, if we do something with the Southeastern Conference, some kind of challenge, is losing that game going to hurt us? Like right now, listen, and Greg Sankey took Nebraska to task a little bit yesterday. Not really, but it was enough to know what he meant. Remember, I'll just refresh you all if you've forgotten. Nebraska and Tennessee were going to play each other, not this coming season, but in 26 and 27, and home and home. And Nebraska canceled the series, claiming the need for more revenue by adding another home game the year they were going to go to Knoxville, because they are renovating Memorial Stadium, and the renovation is going to reduce capacity for a couple of years, and they said they had to have the revenue. Now, at the same time, Matt Rule has quietly gone on record a few times with concern over a really difficult non-conference schedule potentially keeping his team out of the playoff. Listen, you got to even be in the playoff discussion first.
You got to win the games you're supposed to win.
And
lose at home to Illinois.
To be fair for a minute, Lincoln Riley is now hinting at wanting Southern California to drop Notre Dame from the schedule, at least on a regular basis. I hope that he fails in that mission. I hope the powers that be out in L.A. look at it and go, dude, nah.
I think the big money boosters also are pressuring him to step down from that.
Yeah, you got to play that game. You got to play that game. And I get it. It's hard. Nick Saban has proposed at some point, I don't know how serious he was, but he proposed only Power 4 games against Power 4, team, or just all Power 4 scheduling, which sign me up. Like yesterday. I am totally down with that, man. But anyway, coming back around to it, Nebraska said, we need, they don't want to lose.
They said, we're scared.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't.
That's the translation.
They didn't, but they are, and that's why they did it.
That's how I'm
translating. And a lot of people believe that, including Greg Sankey, it would seem. And Tennessee's AD, Danny White, was right to blast him. And also because the contract was signed so long ago, the buyout was like $1 million. And you can't even get, a team from the MAC to come in for like less than $1.5 million these days. The point I make is now Tennessee's going to have to dig out of their own pocket plus the $1 million to find a way to get somebody. And who they
Georgia Tech is who they basically rescheduled.
So, and good for Georgia Tech to step right up. So I'm hopeful that, and this is one reason they want automatic qualifiers, so that they can know, they being the powers of the SEC and Big Ten, and I say powers, the leaders of the SEC and Big Ten can know that if they do enter into a scheduling alliance, and in the case of the Southeastern Conference, if they do go to a ninth conference game to match what the Big Ten is doing, that a couple of more losses might not directly affect schools' abilities to get into the college football playoff. And that's where it gets interesting, because I know, Elijah, you and I and many others have discussed where strength of schedule factors into the committee's way of thinking. I know you and I are of the belief that it does factor in maybe more heavily than some believe, because of the fact that 3-loss Alabama, South Carolina, Mississippi were basically the last 3 left out, while there was a host of 2-loss teams behind them, and even a couple of 3-loss teams from the SEC, like Missouri, that did not at all factor into the discussion. And you and I made the point, the only reason you're still in the discussion is because the committee is saying, man, they played a hard schedule.
Yep.
And they each beat some good teams. Now, in the case of Alabama, their primary reason for being left out is because they crapped the bed twice against each against a 6-win team.
And Ole Miss did it against a 4-win team.
And then Ole Miss lost in Oxford to Kentucky.
That was Kentucky's only SEC win.
Yeah, I know, man. It's crazy. Ole Miss just didn't show up that night.
Yeah, it's the most annoying thing about the stuff we've been getting from these meetings is that we're still continuing to keep the flame going of this notion that Alabama and Ole Miss were punished because of their strong schedule.
Right.
No.
You
are punished for losing to bad teams.
Yes.
And I hate when somebody says all Indiana, teams like Indiana and, Boise State, all those teams had to do was just not lose. Well, what's the opposite of losing, Jay Phillips?
Winning.
You get rewarded for winning. You don't get rewarded just for showing up.
No.
And playing games. You get rewarded for winning games. And these two schools that we're still banging the drum for Ole Miss and Alabama, couldn't beat the teams on the schedule they're supposed to beat.
And if it goes to 16, then Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi all get into the playoff.
Yes, and it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. And again, that's not going to happen this season, but in 26, we believe it's going to. Nothing's done yet. But again, I don't want to rehash last year's, situation. We all know what it is, but I do believe that strength of schedule did factor into the conversation. I do firmly believe that.
And it should never be number one. And that's the thing. Alabama wanted to be the number one thing.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, if you only have strength of schedule as the number one metric involved in allowing a team into the playoff, what's the point of playing that game? Why don't we just see who can schedule the toughest, and then we'll give out bids for those schools? That's not how playing sports works.
Well, I'd love to have an all P4 schedule. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think that'd be fantastic. Yeah. You got more than enough teams to pull from. And yes, even those schools aren't created equal. We talked about it last year. South Carolina plays, Carolina plays Clemson every year. Missouri played Boston College. Now, BC had a better year than you might have anticipated.
Yeah, they didn't stink.
Mississippi played Wake Forest because there's a mandate within the league. And again, Wake is good. But are either of those Clemson? No. And I don't want Carolina to stop playing Clemson.
Not going to.
Yeah, and they're not. Yeah,
and you're
not
going to get punished for losing those games.
No.
I don't think Ole Miss got punished for, losing to good teams. Alabama didn't get punished for losing to Tennessee.
No.
You got punished for losing to bad teams.
Right.
The only fear that you should fear if playing a team from the Big Ten every year should be that the team you play ends up being really bad if they beat you.
Yeah.
Like Michigan, right? Say they play like Texas and Michigan. They played this year. Texas went to the Big House and made a statement win. It was a very impressive win to start the season. And then Michigan ended up losing, 4 or 5 games?
4.
So if they were to have lost that game, it wouldn't hurt if Michigan ran the table and went undefeated, or even only lost 1 or 2 games. It would have really hurt you if what happened to Michigan happened and it turned out they weren't very good. That's when that hurts you, is we can't just have this preconceived notion of a team in September and then hold that through the rest of the year because things change. Other teams will continue to play games and win or lose. If that team goes undefeated and you end up being one of the losses on that schedule, that's not going to hurt you. But if that team goes 6-6, or if they go full on Purdue and 1-11 and you're the only win, yeah, you probably should be punished because you lost to a bad team.
We'll get into a little bit of what Andy Staples had to say about Greg Sankey's comments. Let you hear a little bit from the commissioner as well. And we're going to play fill in the blank. Again, we kind of borrowed this. Elijah and I talked about it this morning in our meeting. We're going to kind of borrow this from Kornheiser and Wilbon on PTI. When a certain situation, so-and-so should feel blank, or this team is blank. Well, so our question today, and y'all can play along with us here in your own mind. When it comes to what the what the SEC and Big Ten are trying to do with 4 automatic qualifiers in a new CFP format, the ACC and Big 12 should feel blank. And we'll get into that and more on the other side. It's the Tuesday post-game show.
athletics directors met 3 weeks ago, looked at a set of formats. We have interest in some. We're not committed to any particular format. I have, over time, talked about, hey, let's just have the fill-in-the-blank number best teams. That goes back to 2019, 2020 playoff expansion. I've reiterated that. I think our room has an interest in a different model. We'll see how that conversation manifests itself this week, and we'll look a little bit more deeply at different ideas, which will put me at some point in a better position to answer those questions.
That's SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey yesterday down in Destin to open the SEC spring meetings. Welcome back in, Jay and Elijah, the postgame show on this Tuesday. Greg spoke for nearly 45 minutes. I've not watched all of it, but I've probably watched about half of it. Got into a lot of things. Some of it was, just some of the clerical, more mundane stuff. And he actually got quite animated at one point, too, when he basically said, I'm paraphrasing now, but I am doing what I think is good for all of college football, not just the Southeastern Conference. And I think he felt a little aggrieved that maybe last week when everybody, because it was unanimous, 11 different leaders had to vote yes, that two of them, Bob Oldesby of the Big 12 and Brett Yormark, not Bob Oldesby, he used to be the guy. Brett Yormark of the Big 12 and Jim Phillips of the ACC, both in statements, not in official releases, said, "Well, hey, we're just here to do what's in the greater good," almost as if they had been forced into doing this. And I think Greg took a little exception to that yesterday. Believe what you want to believe. I'm not here to defend Greg Sankey. He makes $4 million a year. He doesn't need me to defend him. But I see where he's coming from. I'll say that much. But not committed to any one format, Elijah. I believe him, but I think we're going to 16. And and I think I've been that way the whole time. I really have. And it has nothing to do with automatic qualification slots or whatever else. Again, I'm not really for automatic qualifiers. But I'm not going to sit here and rant and rave against them either, because I'm just not sure what good that's going to do any of us at this point in time. The SEC and the Big Ten are now in charge of the college football playoff, period. Whoever wins next year's championship, whatever conference that school comes from, that's the last of this format, and it was only a 2-year deal. The SEC and the Big Ten have taken over, and the others have gone into this, and that's where we are now with our word association. You're younger. I'm going to let you go first. But in terms of the new format that has the most traction at this point, and I'll remind all of you, it basically looks like this. There's 16 slots. 4 for the Southeastern Conference, minimum, but automatic. 4 for the Big Ten. 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the now group of 6, the best group of 6 champion, and 3 at-larges, one of which we almost automatically assume is going to go to Notre Dame if Notre Dame hits. Now, there's no actual parameters put on this. But if there's a 10-2 or better Notre Dame,
they're probably in.
Maybe even in some years 9-3, depending on what the 3 are. Then you're in. So, but regardless, that leaves 3 at-larges, which could go to a Big Ten school. Or again, if it was this past season, that is, that would have gone to Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, and I can't remember who. Not Oklahoma. Who would have been right there behind them? I can't remember now.
Miami, probably.
Yeah, Hurricanes. Yeah. Hurricanes. Yes. Thank you, Hurricanes. I knew it was orange in my head. I was like, it's a team with orange. So thank you. Yes. And that's where we are. So word associate, or fill in the blank. the ACC and the Big 12, if this proposal goes through, or as it is being discussed, Elijah Campbell, should feel blank.
Insulted.
Oh, okay.
Because it is insulting that you're just going to give auto bids to two conferences, which in some of those auto bids can conceivably go to 8 and 4 teams.
Good.
Like, how many times have we gone through, looked at past years of the SEC and Big Ten, especially the Big Ten, where there would be years where an 8 and 4 Iowa team or somebody like that, right, would have a chance to play in to get a spot in the college football playoff. And because college football is so cyclical, there will be years like this year. There was an 11-2 BYU team that was not even in the discussion for a college football playoff spot. They were third in the Big 12. They didn't get into the Big 12 title game because of a tiebreaker. And there was a Colorado team that was also pretty solid.
Were they 9-3?
They were 9-3. And a 9-3 Colorado team with, I wouldn't say any really bad losses, would have a fair gripe if a team that was, I don't know, in the Big Ten at 8-4 got to upset their way into this thing.
Man, I'm drawing a blank. Who did Arizona State beat? Utah?
They did not beat Utah. Arizona State.
Kansas State?
Or did they beat BYU? I think they might have beaten BYU.
I can't remember now.
But there was like a 3-way tie.
I can't remember. Well, Arizona State won. Okay, insulted. And
I'd feel insulted because, and then here's the thing too. Like, think about it like this: if the auto bids aren't limited to just 4, right? If we can assume that you can get at large bids, what's the point of a play-in game? If you're going to have play-in games for 3 versus 6, and that team that's the third place team lose that game and still get in. It's not a true play-in game. You're just opening the door for a spoiler. That's all it is. That's all it is.
I feel you on that one, and I don't disagree with that sentiment. I don't. Like, if you lose a play-in game, why should you still technically be eligible for an at-large? I don't know if they can write it into the rules that you're precluded from it if you lose. But I see your point.
Iowa State is who Arizona State beat over the head with a bag of hammers in the Big 12 title game.
All right, same question to me now, obviously. Fill in the blank. The ACC and Big 12 should feel blank about this particular 16-school proposal. I'm not quite as strongly, or feel quite as strongly as you do, but I said anxious. And here's why. But we're going to kind of almost come to a same point here. The at-larges. All right, what does that mean? Where am I there? How are they going to look at my other teams? Again, I've kind of joked that this past year, and I don't know that this actually happened, right? It's me joking, as I say, that somebody from Burbank at Disney headquarters, again, I'm going over ESPN at this point, to somebody from Burbank, calling the college football playoff committee chair and going, are you seriously putting Southern Methodist in this thing over Alabama? You know we're putting a television show on, don't you? Yeah, well, yeah, boss, but, they had a better record, and they went to the championship game.
Boss, did you watch that Alabama-Oklahoma game? That was the thing. We aired it. You aired it.
But SMU got in. But then Miami, but anxious. Like, all right, we know we can get 2. And it'll likely be the 2 teams that play in our championship game. And one of them will get a trophy, and that winner will also get a $4 million bonus, which I do think is something.
That's something.
That's something. But then, all right, is to your point, all right, well, geez, are these play-in game losers still going to get in, but instead they're going to just be on the road somewhere? Like, are we going to have any viable opportunity to really get an at-large? And if Notre Dame more than likely is going to get one all the time anyway, and does the committee, look at our strength of schedule numbers and go, that's not so good? I mean, we have Boston College, and we have Wake Forest, and we have a Virginia program that's decided to not like football anymore. Or what? I mean, and the same thing with the Big 12. I'd be more anxious, honestly, if I'm the ACC.
Because I think in some years, like the ACC, the top of the ACC is really good.
Yeah.
But it's like all college sports can be cyclical in this way.
And typically are. Typically are. I mean, Andy Staples did a breakdown like the last 7 or 8 years. And, like, again, last season, the SEC would have been in a 16 school, would have had a lot of participants. But just a couple of years ago, might have only had 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Might not fill those 4 with even a great 10. You'd get them because they're there. So somebody has to fill the slot. Anxious, all right? Insulted and anxious. But, again, I think we came to our conclusions perhaps in some of the same ways because what do these at-larges look like, and are they really there to benefit us? We'll continue this discussion on the other side. Weigh in with us, 803-404-6100, Postgame Show. No better place to call than Integrated Media when it comes time to get your home theater taken from from no level to next level, or from next level to really next level. Whatever it is that you want to do when it comes to home theater, Integrated Media has been making those dreams a reality for more than 15 years. Love what they've done at my house. I promise you will too. Maybe it's time for an outdoor system. Be able to watch a ball game out back while you're grilling some steaks or burgers. The kids are playing in the pool or just hanging out, whatever you like to do, even while you're doing some yard work. Have that TV on in the back and get all the latest info. They can do that for you with equipment that is made to be outside. It can get rained on. It can get sunshine on, whatever it is. And it's going to sit out there. You don't have to cover it, not to worry about it. They can also integrate, literally, your security system, lights, thermostat, AV system, all into one place. 803-948-8327. The best in home technology, Integrated Media.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with some good news for you, and that there are no accidents causing traffic backups downtown, at least as of right now. So hopefully we can keep that trend going on a Tuesday. We do obviously still have some long-term road construction on places like on I-20 between exit 64 and 65, 26 between exit 108A and 125, and I-126 between Hugie Street and I-26. That's been causing some backup for a few months now, but minimal. But other than that, no traffic-related accidents.
Talking what's going on at the SEC spring meetings, where the number one topic is obviously the future of football scheduling. Inside the conference, will the SEC this week vote to go to 9 conference games starting in 2026? Remember, we still do not have any scheduling format beyond this coming season. And just to remind everybody, I think most of you know, but I'll just say it. You're going to play in conference games the same 8 schools you played last year. You just switch the venue. That's it. Which means, for Carolina fans, that's a second straight season without Florida, Tennessee, or Georgia on the docket. For some, they're like, phew. I think for most, they're like, I don't like that. And I'll be raising my hand on the second one there. I don't like that. If they go to 9, I think it's going to be a 3+6 format rather than a 1+8. Those are the only two, by the way, mathematically, that can really work to allow everybody to see everybody often enough to make it a real conference in some ways. Both of those allow for the math to work, the maths to work to get everybody on everybody else's campus in a 4-year period. But
the math will be mathing at that point.
That's right. But the SEC also wants to know, and I think the Big Ten is in the same boat, and they've already gone to 9, obviously, and have been for some time in the Big Ten. But is this going to harm our ability to get more teams in? And is that why they want – listen, here's what I think, Elijah. And here's where I think Noble is going to be too strong. And I don't know how you feel about this. But – I think the Big Ten and the SEC, and yes, look, it's for more money. I'm not naive, but it is also for competitive purposes. They can both can be true, right? They want to play harder schedules. I don't think Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti like hearing Mark Stoops be scared of Louisville, and I know that Tony Petitti doesn't want to hear Lincoln Riley be scared of Notre Dame. Now, those aren't necessarily equals. The point I make is Southern California versus Notre Dame does big television business. I realize Kentucky, Louisville does not on a relative scale.
Right. Yes, on a national scale.
Now, look, if Kentucky has a heck of a quarterback and Louisville is going to recruit the next Lamar, then sure, we got a game. I'm down with that. I got a hunch that Louisville doesn't get the next Lamar, but they might. They might. I don't know. Anyway, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. And then you've got, you've got certain schools, LSU playing Clemson getting their deal with Notre Dame. That's great. You've got South Carolina now. Again, I'm very happy with South Carolina. South Carolina obviously plays Clemson. South Carolina is going to play Virginia Tech this year. And then in the next 6 seasons has home and homes with North Carolina, NC State, and I think it's actually Miami, North Carolina, NC State. I think that's the order. I might have the 2 North Carolinas reversed. I know in 26 and 27, it's the home and home with the Hurricanes. That's excellent. And you're going to still play
Love
Clemson.
That.
Yeah.
Love that.
And honestly, again, it wouldn't bother me one bit. I would be thrilled if you told me that starting in 2026 or 7 or 8 or whatever, Big Ten SEC Challenge is coming in the 3rd week of the year or whatever. I'm here for that. Or if you told me, hey, we've decided to only play Power 4 schools, I'm here for that. That's the league you're in, if you will. That's the level that you play. As I joke with you sometimes, again, in week 5 of the NFL season, and I won't use any specific teams anymore, at least from the NFL perspective, but you don't have NFL teams going to play a Canadian League team. Or what's the US XFL, whatever they call this thing now, UFL? I don't know what it is. Or is it USFL? I think
it's just the UFL now.
Okay. I don't know. The USFL of my high school youth was great.
Or the Arena Football League.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of fun.
Well, sure.
To see them play in a 50-yard field
Sure.
with those goalposts,
The Arena League team might beat an NFL team at that point.
there would be some real home field advantage.
You know? Anyway, so I think that's what this is. This is designed, whether you like it or not, I can't tell you how to feel. Whether that's you directly, Mr. Campbell, or any of you listening. And again, maybe noble is too strong a word to place upon what these two men are trying to do in their respective leagues and then do so together. But I think it's like we want to maximize our visibility without too much harm to our ability to get into the college football playoff and compete for a national championship, because all schedules are not created equal. That's what they're trying to do. Now, again, agree or disagree, that's why we have debate, but I believe that's where their head and heart are. And again, yeah, it's to maximize their partnerships with their television providers as much as anything else, but secondarily, or at least 50-50, maybe 51-49, to protect their members when it comes to competing for a title.
Your head and your heart can be somewhere, but and also have really good intentions, but you can also be disingenuous in the path to get there, right? Because clearly they're fighting for more of their teams to get into this postseason format as humanly possible. It's to just hide behind, oh, well, we don't want to play these, or we might not play these because it might keep us out of the playoff, is pretty disingenuous, considering these are all very smart people and they understand historical precedent. And I can't think of one example in the college football playoff era, even with 4 teams, where a team was left out that was deserving to be in because they lost too many, or they had one loss and it was just to a good team.
Right.
With the exception of Georgia, right? But even that year, Alabama, who beat Georgia, still had one loss to a playoff team, so they also had a loss. They leapfrogged an undefeated Florida State team that won the ACC championship.
Right.
And they played a pretty hard schedule because, I don't know if you remember, that Florida State team beat LSU to start the season.
They did.
They scheduled tough non-conference. They ran through their league, won the league championship with a third-string quarterback, and still weren't allowed in. Like, if you're the SEC and the Big Ten, you've never not gotten the benefit of the doubt, reasonably. Alabama was left out because they lost to 2 bad teams in their conference. Ole Miss was left out because they lost to one of the worst teams in their conference, not named Mississippi State.
And South Carolina was left out because they lost to Mississippi and Alabama.
Yes, and the committee decided to put them behind them. So if you get put behind them, then you're just stuck, which is really why South Carolina is the only team that has the biggest gripe here.
I agree. I think Carolina actually had the biggest gripe because they only had good losses.
Yeah, they only had good losses.
Yeah.
And between Alabama and Ole Miss, they had 3 really bad ones between the 2 of them.
Right.
So really, like I get fighting for more participation from the schools in your member conferences and doing what's right for your league, but to say that scheduling against Big Ten teams, or doing something like an SEC Big Ten Challenge, or doing something like a 9-game SEC schedule, that you can't do that because the committee didn't value the league's strength of schedule, is just disingenuous, because you were in the discussion solely because your league was so good and because the grind of an SEC schedule is different than anything else.
And let me ask you a hypothetical. Let's use let's use Tennessee. Let's not use Georgia or Texas.
Yeah.
Let's use Tennessee. Tennessee goes 8-4. Let's say there's a 9-game schedule. There's 7-2 in conference, but maybe Tennessee played, the Hurricanes in one of those kickoff games and lost, and then in the Big Ten SEC Challenge, if it ever comes to fruition, lost to Illinois or something.
Yeah.
All right. So there they are with 4 losses, but strength of schedule number 9. I don't know. Just throwing out. I'm just trying to make stuff up. And then there's 11-1 or 10-2. Let's say 10-2 Oklahoma State. Only 2 conference losses. They end up winning the Big 12, so they're 11-2. But they lost. Their strength of schedule is number 35. Like I think that's where the rub is for the SEC and Big Ten folk. Like, man, that's a harder schedule. And maybe Tennessee lost 4 games by a combined 15 points.
Well, then the question is, Where's Illinois at the end of the season?
Yeah,
Where's Miami at the end of the season?
Yeah.
If those two teams are 6-6, then you have no gripe.
All right, okay, and assuming, and that's again, there's a lot of hypotheticals to get into.
If they go 8-4, if both those teams are like 8-4, you have no gripe.
Yeah,
right. But now, if Illinois went on this unprecedented tear and only had one loss and won the Big Ten, and Miami won the ACC, then you can maybe have that discussion.
But that's the fear, and that's where the fear comes in. And again, is it an irrational fear? Perhaps,
because you can't control those things,
right? And that's what
therapists tell me.
And that's what they want to do. They want to control a lot of the uncontrollables. And I think that's where this gets dicey.
Because that ain't life.
Yeah. Jay or nay is next. Welcome back in. 9 minutes in front of 5 o'clock. Headlines of the day coming up top of the 5. More from what's going on down in Destin. I will say Trev Alberts, according to Ross Zellinger, has said today, that's Trev Alberts, the A&M AD, moving to 9 conference games will be contingent upon the college football playoff format. So we've been discussing that. And again, they do go hand in hand. So let's get that done, because I'm tired of not knowing what the schedule is.
Is it contingent also on auto bids?
Well,
that's what I should have asked him, because we're going to 16 regardless. I don't think anybody minds 16.
No,
I think they mind already. Awarding 25% of the conference a bid to the college football playoff before the season starts.
Yeah. Well, half of it'll be half before you even So.
Come on.
I hear you. Again, I want 16. I'm not as big on the AQ part. In the meantime, it's game show music.
Yes, it is.
That's all I'm here for.
And the best part about J or Nay is that you can't lose. These are your opinion questions here. You can't lose.
Tune in an hour from now when I can lose.
You might
often
lose this one.
Often do.
All right, J or Nay. The Gamecocks softball team under Coach Chastain will be in the Women's College World Series in the next 3 years.
Oh, man. Gosh.
I'm giving you a 3-year window here.
You know what? I'll give you a J, and here's why. I think that this is 25 years ago, South Carolina baseball had a heartbreaking home loss to Lafayette when they were a great team. The Gamecocks were. Lafayette was good, too. I think that really, even though it took them 2 more years, but then Ray got them there 6 times in 9 seasons, right? Or 10 seasons, I guess. If Ashley recruits the way she can, and that pain is used as the proper motivator, given time, give me a J in the next 3 years. Yeah, maybe not next year. It's hard, man. It's hard.
It's very hard.
There's so many good teams.
J or Nay, Coastal Carolina, our friends up north here in the state, got the worst draw of any host in the NCAA tournament field.
100% J. Absolutely toughest. They were probably thrilled to know that they were going to host.
Yes, as they should.
And then they drew Florida.
Arguably the hottest team in college baseball.
Yes, certainly one of the top 2 or 3 hottest teams right now in the country.
Oh, and East Carolina, the program that's basically known as the best program to not make it to Omaha.
Yeah. Coastal has their title, Coastal has their tradition, but their hearts probably sank to the depths of the Atlantic Ocean when they saw that the Florida Gators were coming to Conway.
I was mad for them.
But that is Fairfield. Much respect. Hey, Coastal, don't overlook Fairfield.
You got to do that first.
But
can't complain about the draw.
But should you beat Fairfield, somebody's going to win that first ECU Florida game, and then they're going to play Coastal.
Now here's the fun one.
All right.
Out of the 13 SEC teams in this tournament, the league will get at least 10 into supers.
Oh, wow. 10. Gosh, Elijah. Yeah, Jay.
All right, going with it.
They're stacked. Now I got to think of the 3 that don't make it. Mississippi State won't make it.
Kentucky probably won't.
Kentucky is in that Clemson regional.
Yep. I don't think they make it.
I don't know who else yet. We'll see. Hour 3 coming up.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with some good news, and that is that there are no accident-related traffic backups as of now here in the Midlands. Now, we do still have some long-term road construction that might cause you some traffic backup later this afternoon, like on I-20 between exit 64 and 65, 26 between exit 108A and exit 125, and I-126 between Hugie Street and I-26, and also South Belt Line is closed for construction. That might be causing some headaches for a few of you around here, but most important thing, no accident-related traffic backups so far.
It is 5 o'clock news time here on a Tuesday. Welcome back in. Final hour of the postgame show as well, alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Start with some Gamecock news. First, after a fantastic season, a very disappointing ending to it when it comes to Gamecock softball. South Carolina losing Game 3 of their Super Regional here at Beckham Field to UCLA. Final score 5-0. This after South Carolina had dropped a 5-4 decision in Game 2 on Saturday, a difficult one for Coach Chastain's ball club. She spoke after the Game 3 loss and said it was a difficult time to try and come back in Game 3 after such a heartbreaker.
I do. I mean, obviously the result didn't work in our favor, but I can tell you that we had a lot of conversation about it. I told the broadcasters when I met with them before the game, obviously we were heartbroken right after the game yesterday, and there was a lot of emotion. We quickly debriefed, and we brought the team back here last night, late, right before bed, and we just kind of talked about who we were and kind of just flushing the game and moving on as quickly as possible. I honestly, being transparent, I felt like we did not do a good job of that at Auburn. If you think back to the regular season and the rain delay, we all remember that, right? And so I felt like, okay, we learned our lesson once, in that scenario, like we didn't show up that well the next day, the Saturday game at Auburn. So I felt like it was the right thing, to have some more conversation about it. And it was great conversation. And I really did feel like this morning when we showed up to team breakfast that we had moved on emotionally, but we just didn't get the job done on the field. I felt like, offensively, we just didn't have enough production. You can see that from the box score. We didn't walk enough. We struck out too much. And, hats off to, Terry and Tinsley. They had a really great day. And sometimes that happens. And unfortunately today, it just didn't go our way at the plate.
Still a very, big season and an unexpected season of success for South Carolina softball. And Ashley, in the same post-game press conference, spoke about her program getting a lot of people's attention.
I just love this place so much. And, in the process of building the team and the wins and the losses, and I don't know, I fell back in love with this place, and so I'm just really excited for the future. I really am. And I think that the respect that we earned on a national level in softball, I think is really a big deal for me. And, the success that we had in the league, and I said from the beginning, that I wanted to get the league from the bottom to the middle. I felt like if we could get ourselves up in the middle of the league standings that, we'd have a chance to host. And, obviously that came true for us. So I thought that was a huge step in the right direction. Obviously for me, the bright spots are the people. And so I could probably sit here for 5 hours and talk about individual, Sam Gress stories and Ari Rohde, Lexi Winters, Abby Knight stories, and down the roster. But the great thing about coaching is that you're able to stay connected with all of the people that you coach. And, I'm excited for the next step in their lives and being a part of those conversations. And, that's a huge part of the mentorship that happens behind the scenes of helping them be prepared for the next step in life. So, I don't know if I could pick one thing. It's really all of it. It's been a dream come true. It's been wonderful every day to lead the program, and I'm going to continue to do my best to lead the program, and so that we're talking about something different next year.
Don't think that team will be picked 15th or 16th in the preseason polling next year, but still a stacked conference. As David Cloninger told us, several key pieces will be returning, and with what you've done, and David mentioned some of the recruits that he knew were in the stands during the weekend. You've shown that you're not only competitive, but you're in line to you were there.
You belong.
You were there. And that's how hard it is. And you were playing one of the biggest programs in the country. Listen, for some, it's not going to excuse it. Look, you had a 3-run lead.
Yeah,
with 3 outs to get, and you didn't get it done. And, again, maybe just didn't have quite enough, whether it was – that's why we played that first cut. Was it as much emotional as it was competitive in terms of just not putting any runs across the plate on Sunday? Who knows? A mixture of both, more than likely, is the truth. But a lot to be proud of, a lot to be, happy about in terms of, and excited about for the future. But it stings. And when you're at home and you lose in a super –
it's going to hurt.
It stings. There's no question about it. But like you asked me a little bit earlier, I go back to 2000, and not necessarily the same type of season directly. South Carolina didn't go, have 25 softball wins. But I remember the pain of that day, over at Sarge Fry Field, man, because Elijah, it wasn't supposed to happen. Wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And I think maybe, when you have a 3-run lead with only 3 outs to get, and those 3 outs get you to the College World Series, and you don't make it happen, it hurts.
But you know what makes me think this team's going to be back? Listening to that last cut, talking to her. I think Coach Chastain Woodard values, and this is why I think a lot of players, why she's so successful in the transfer portals, because she's developed incredible relationships with these players too. And it kind of transcends just what happens on the diamond, right? She is so in tune with how her players are, not just as players, but as people as well. I think that's one of the reasons why she's a really good recruiter. And to be successful in the SEC, you have to be a great recruiter. And 2, it's not just like they lost to some scrappy underdog who was here for the first time, too. They lost to UCLA.
Right. 54 wins now.
Juggernaut in this sport. The UCLA punched their 34th ticket to the College World Series on Sunday. 34! They were only a 9 seed because they played in the Big Ten, because administrators at the University of California, Los Angeles screwed over that program by putting them in a non-competitive league. So that automatically ruins what their strength of schedule is. That team is not a 9 seed.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I know we field these tournaments because of metrics, as we should, because then you're giving everybody like tangible evidence as to what teams do. But that team is not a 9 seed. You went toe-to-toe with one of the greatest programs in the history of softball, and you had them 3 outs away, really 1 out away.
Even with 1 out, you still had the lead.
Still had the lead to go to the College World Series.
Yeah.
I think that's something that this team, and David did a really good job of when he was on with us at 3:30, really laying out the foundation they have that's coming back. There's a lot that they lose, but I think Coach Ashley's done a fantastic job of at least demonstrating she can bring the talent in. And you just hear the way she talks about her players. It's not just she's a good recruiter because they've got bags of cash to throw. They have a program to sell. They have a program that has already shown proof of concept in year 1. You have a coach who is fantastic with their players. I have zero doubt that sooner rather than later, we will be talking about them playing in Oklahoma City.
I think you're onto something, man. I do. Congratulations to them. Again, I know it hurts. We've seen that kind of pain before over on that complex. So I totally get it. Gamecock baseball news. Bo Hollins announced yesterday that he will be returning for his sophomore season. Obviously, again, the family lineage and the fact that he played high school ball about 15 minutes away, if that. He will be back. KJ Scobie has announced that he will be coming back as well. I think both freshmen really came along in what was otherwise a rather dreadful season by all accounts. But it's good to have those two guys on your corner infield spots that have begun to build a foundation. Also at catcher, Talmadge LeCroy will be back. We don't know yet about Gavin Braylon, and I think that's one that's interesting. Gavin, of course, maybe because of injury to Talmadge, became the number one. He has 3 years of eligibility left should he choose to come back, and I'll be curious to find out a little bit more about that. Max Kofer also could technically come back behind the plate. I would think one or more of those guys will probably be moving on in search of playing time. But Talmadge LeCroy says he will be back. So even though he is draft eligible, he's coming back. In the meantime, again, we talked a lot on Friday about John Whittle's fantastic piece at the Big Spur that took an incredibly deep dive into what went wrong with South Carolina baseball, and obviously the issues were numerous. Been told, that not to expect any coaching change. I've been told that. Others in the business have been told that. And, this week, Jeremiah Donati's focus is going to be on the Southeastern Conference meetings in Destin, which we'll talk more about here this hour. Now, and David said, I think there's 17 between high school portal and transfers, between high school and portal transfers, and JUCOs, 17 guys that are already, at least in some way, kind of committed to the program. So you're already seeing some roster overhaul with more to come. But at least with those two young players, again, one local in Bo Hollins and the other in KJ Scobie, who's from the Orlando, Lakeland area, they'll be back. And we'll have more throughout the week. We'll talk to Jack Veltri here soon, too, I'm sure. But David, John, and I just want to say again real quick, I know this is a news section of the program, but I said it on Friday. You said it on Friday. We've said it before, and David Cloninger said it again today. For what John Whittle did and how he does it, I'm with David. He's the best at what he does.
He's awesome.
He really, and I don't have to say that. I say it because I 100% believe it, and that's why I'm with David, and I know you are too, that the things that John put in there, I have every reason to believe are completely valid because I know the kind of guy John is. John was doing his job.
He's good at it.
How did this season go so wrong so quickly? John uncovered the how and the why.
And that when you have a season like that, in a program like this, a deep dive like that is necessary.
Yeah.
And doing some digging becomes very necessary. Now, with all that being said, I went over last week countless times how Auburn and Georgia got themselves out of a hole, and step one was retaining some of your best players that were eligible to return. So I'm not saying they're going to make a Georgia or Auburn type turnaround, but step one of that is at least in place where you can keep the cornerstones of the little bright spots that you had during a season like this. Now the next step is for them to develop, and if you read that story, there's a fairness to question whether or not that happens, but if that does happen, then you can see some improvement. But that's the big thing now. You've already got these kids back on campus, KJ Scobie and Bo Hollins and Talmadge LeCroy, all those guys, whoever, and if Gavin Braylon decides to come back, all have to make really big jumps as well and build on what they did this year.
Roman Kimball has announced that he will be moving on. That's not really a surprise. Again, in John's story, and many of you saw it last week, Roman's father was far less than kind to anything related to Carolina baseball. Roman has sort of distanced himself from what his father put on social media, which is probably a pretty savvy thing to do. But, I think basically that was sort of a two-way street. As I understand it, Roman didn't even really have an exit meeting because of Coach Maneri's displeasure with what his father put out there, and that was that. So I don't know that there was a real future here. But Carolina pitching, that'll be the next one to look at. And some of you may say, hey, they should all go. Maybe, maybe not. I think, again, coming to the development question, I think there's some talent over there that maybe wasn't developed. And when you've done your deep dive, John did his, in conference games, some of these guys had ERAs that went up by nearly 2 runs a game.
Then you get into what happened with the bullpen.
And that's from last year. That means they were okay last year, nearly 2 runs worth. I think it was 1.75. That's a gigantic jump. So there's still a lot of questions. about how this program gets back to where it needs to be. But to your point, Auburn, the number 4 national seed, Georgia, the number 7 national seed. There is a path.
The biggest thing,
Can you follow it?
was keeping those players and developing them, like a Charlie Condon, which is a lofty, lofty goal. But still, that development happened with a coaching change. But if you want to look at the example of no coaching change, Ike Irish, from one year to the next, turned himself into a potential first-round pick in the MLB draft and a potential All-American candidate because of the year that he had. And if you're watching the college baseball selection show yesterday, there's a lot of talk about how Ike Irish is one of the most improved players in the country, and him being so improved is a huge reason why Auburn was able to get back into relevance.
Well, you wanted to see Ethan Petrie take another step this year, and he didn't, and I don't know that I put a lot of that on Ethan.
Nope. I don't think I do either.
NBA tonight, Knicks steal one the other day after being down 20 points. Game 4 in Indianapolis. Pacers are up 2-1, and the Atlanta Braves back at it tonight in Philadelphia. Braves had a rough weekend against the Padres. Spencer Strider back on the hill. Ranger Suarez will go for Philadelphia. Come back on the other side and get you into more of what Greg Sankey has had to say as the SEC explores future football formats. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Tuesday. Jay and Elijah with you. Hope your holiday weekend went well for those of you who got to have the day off. We used to work a lot on Memorial Day around these parts. Yesterday was a big day for college baseball. But and that's not why we didn't work yesterday, not because Carolina didn't make the tournament.
So we did not work Memorial Day last.
No, the company likes to have us take the day off now. And I kind of got chastised when I said I think we should work. I think that was last year. It was polite chastising.
See, I use that in Memorial Day weekend every year. That's my go home weekend.
That's good.
So I like to use it as such.
I have memories of moving on Memorial Day weekend one year, and then a few years later, my wife and I, not like renovating, but we got ambitious one Memorial Day weekend, and we like repainted our kitchen. We took every door off of its hinge, like the cabinet, like like where the plates and everything are. We took all those,
the real undertaking there,
and all the drawers out, and we put all new hardware and painted everything, and it sounds great. And you see those commercials like for Home Depot, and they do it in 30 seconds.
And they're all smiling, and they're doing it, and it's so harmonious.
Like they take it off, and then they paint them, and then they're like having a big cookout, or they're having like a big dinner party. All in 30 seconds. And it didn't take 30 seconds.
Hey, guess what doesn't happen?
It didn't take 30 seconds. It didn't even take a day. It took all of them and then some. But we did it.
It happened.
We did it. We did it. SEC meetings, day 2, really sort of day 1, like fully, because Greg Sankey got down there. I guess they had a few things to do yesterday, but today, everything in full swing. Coaches, football coaches, ADs are down there. And the number one topic remains the future of football, both inside the conference and as that relates to the future of the college football playoff. The SEC is likely going to go to 9 games, but potentially only if they know that they will also get, and the Big Ten feels the same way, 4 automatic spots every year in the college football playoff. And here's Greg Sankey from yesterday saying, I'll use the word, he didn't, but ironically, Greg says, getting 4 auto bids could hurt us.
So if you actually go back and do the research, that kind of format could cost us positions, depending on the number of teams. I don't see the critics actually digging in to understand that reality. I don't see the critics actually analyzing, like I've just described, how schedules are evaluated. So the critics can run to the microphones and share their opinions. We're trying to find a format to determine whatever number it is, the best teams in college football. And I think where we are right now is we have used a political process inside a room to come to decisions about football. We should be using football information to come to football decisions. Have to be unanimous. We provide a model, and then we sit on our hands for a year and a half, 2 years, as opposed to looking at the depth of issues I'm describing about the game and the concerns about regular season scheduling being impacted by what we have right now. We sat on our hands because we had to have unanimity.
I like where he is with the last couple of statements there. One of the things he said as well, and we don't have a clip of it, but I did in listening to what he said yesterday. Again, he went for about 45 minutes. I listened to about half of it. But one of the things I heard, Elijah, to kind of go along with that was, my phone's not blowing up over here. This is in the portion where he was kind of upset about what the ACC and Big 12 commissioners did last week. He's like, my phone's not blowing up. In other words, they're complaining, but they're not helping me solve the problem. Now, you can, again, how genuine is that? I'm not sure. Jim Phillips and Bob Bowlesby may be saying, dude, we call you all the time. But I think he could also probably, Greg Sankey, could probably get away with what he said because, somebody could ask one of those two men, how often do y'all talk to Greg about, trying to figure out a new long-term format? Some. When's the last time you talked to him? Last year. I don't know what the answer is, but he makes a good point. Like, we're making a lot of political decisions because everything had to be unanimous. In other words, we got to go in here and work the room, trying to find a football format. Now, I don't know what the perfect football format is. Again, you and I agree on this. We're fine with 16. And while it can't be perfect, I think the most ideal would just be, hey, just seed it up.
Yep.
Rank them, seed them. Play
Pretty
football.
simple.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing he fails to mention, and he did, make a pretty good leap onto the high horse there to say, well, the one thing the critics don't talk about if they did their research is that, this would actually hurt us. That operates under the assumption that when you get 4 auto bids, you stop with 4 only.
Right.
How many people honestly believe that if they install the auto bid format, that they're not going to allow other SEC and Big Ten teams to be eligible for at-large bids?
Well, and that's why I don't know that I would go for the play-in game thing. And that was the point that you and I were making earlier. And I agree with you on that. If you're going to have a play-in game or 2, which is what I think they're really going for, if you lose, should you immediately be ineligible? In other words, this is it.
This is your playoff.
You got to treat it like part of the playoffs. And at that point, that's where you could harm yourself.
Because honest question here, Alabama, take one of the precious jewels of the SEC, right? Because the only reason we're having this conversation now is because Alabama didn't make it in over SMU.
Right.
Guarantee it. Wouldn't be having this conversation if Alabama got in last year. Alabama's the 3 seed. They play, let's say, South Carolina at 6, and South Carolina beats Alabama, and Alabama is excluded from the college football playoff. Who's to say the next year they don't say, well, the loser of the play-in game should now be eligible because how does this team not make the playoff? This is kind of like the alliance thing, right, where Kevin Warren sent an invitation to other conferences, the Pac-12, and said, let's do business together. Also, I'm carrying a dagger, and it's in my hand right now. It is unsheathed, and I'm waving it around. I may stab you with it.
Yeah.
Greg Sankey was on the podium yesterday saying, I have this sheath, or I have this, this dagger unsheathed right here. I'm not going to use it, I swear, because we're only getting 4. And it's going to hurt us, actually. This actually is a format that would hurt us. Why would he do anything that actually hurts the conference? That's not his job. We've said plenty of times on the show, his job is to do what's best for the SEC.
Yeah.
And if he truly believes in his heart of hearts that 4 auto bids hurts the league some years, he's not going to do it.
I agree. And I wonder now, because again, what we've heard is that the ACC and Big 12 understand they won't, if we go to automatics, they understand they're not going to get 4 as well because there's your 16. They want 3, which would still leave 1 at large, which you think in the grand scheme, again, it pencil Notre Dame in every year. And Notre Dame's going to feel like, man, we got to be one of those 16 highest ranked teams every year. And, well, maybe not every year, but certainly in most seasons.
Yes.
9 out of 10, 4 out of 5, something like that.
The way Marcus Freeman's got them right now,
Yeah.
I think you can, penciling them in is a fair term for it.
But I don't think the SEC and Big Ten want to have the ACC and Big 12 get more than the 2 that they're currently giving them. It's interesting to see how this is going to play out because I think to the point you just made as well, what's to say the next year?
They don't change the rules.
Right. I think because, now it doesn't have to be unanimous.
Because now they have the power.
Right.
They can just say next year, all right, those teams are eligible for at-larges.
And I think that's something else from a fan perspective, too, that you're going to kind of want. All right, what is it that we're doing? I mean, there's a reason the NFL has not voted twice this year at owners' meetings on reseeding the NFL playoffs. It's because it's a lot more dangerous. It's a slippery slope, at least. Because it could be you one day that's in the wrong position or in a weird position. So we'll continue some of this discussion, get you caught up on what's going on with the NCAA baseball tournament as part of the drive around the SEC, because there's a lot of SEC in it. Be right back.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with, thankfully, no accidents to report to you that are causing traffic backups here in the Midlands. Of course, we still have some long-term road construction that might cause you some issues on the way home, like on I-20 between exit 64 and 65, 26 between exit 108A and exit 125, and on I-126 between Hugh G Street and I-26. Also have a report of South Beltline being closed for construction, which might cause you some headaches, but otherwise no accident-related backups.
It is drive around the SEC time on this Tuesday. I'm not going to do it this time.
The Dieter voice is staring at you in the corner like the Green Goblin mask right now.
I'm not going to do it this time.
Oh, Jay, I know you want to do it. We know you want to.
Welcome to Destin, Florida. We are having our meetings.
This is a drive around the SEC.
The beach is very beautiful this time of year here. They have the cocktails.
The bratwurst.
All right, sorry.
I do love it.
I always have to. I do too, actually. But you know what? Hot take. Not a big fan of a lot of German beers.
I'm not either. I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take. It's just I like a lot of hoppier stuff. I'm more of a pale ale.
They're very weedy.
Individual. And I do love a good wheat beer from time to time. I like a good lager from time to time.
Yeah, now the lagers I'm better with, but there's just a lot of German beer I'm like, not a huge fan of.
I just like others better. Now, I'm not one to turn down beer in any capacity, but if I had to choose, I'm not seeking out a ton of German-specific beer. I don't think that's crazy of a take.
All right, good. Thank you.
We have very similar beer tastes in that regard.
Yeah. I want it so hoppy and piney that I'm like sneezing because of allergies I don't have.
Which I'm always cool with.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Just with the hoppy and piney part, not necessarily the sneezing part.
Yeah, not really.
If that's collateral damage, I think I'm cool with living with that.
One quick note that is really I should probably do last, but I'm just going to do it first so I don't forget. Alex Condon will be returning to the Florida men's basketball.
That didn't make J or nay, but that was going to be one of the questions if we had more time, or I guess statements for you to agree with or disagree with. Because they also got Boogie Fland from the transfer.
I saw that from Arkansas. Right?
Arkansas. Yeah. Should they be considered the favorite to repeat as national champions?
Well, maybe on the surface I could say yes, but I know Duke is losing a lot. But Duke is also
they reload.
They're recruiting up there,
and they didn't just get one high-profile recruit; they got two with landing one
twins.
of the boozers. Yeah,
twins, Basil, twins. The Southeastern Conference got 13 schools into the NCAA baseball tournament. The three that didn't make it, if you're wondering, because that's easier, are A&M, South Carolina, and Missouri.
A&M was the preseason number one.
They were. They didn't make it. Vanderbilt is the number one overall seed. Vandy, I'd say, cruised through the SEC tournament, but they only had to play 3 games because they have a new format this year. But they won them all.
They did beat Tennessee over the head with a bag of hammers for 9 innings.
Yeah, Tennessee knew they were going to play, right?
I think they might have exhausted all of their players in the Texas game alone, with that one going 12 innings?
Vandy, the number one overall seed in the national tournament. They'll be hosting Louisville, ETSU, and Wright State. Texas is the number 2 overall seed. Arkansas is the number 3 overall seed. Auburn is the number 4 overall national seed. Then there's a break. North Carolina is number 5. Then LSU is number 6.
Short break.
Georgia, number 7.
Very short break.
Oregon State, conferenceless Oregon State. Way to go, Oregon State Beavers. RIP Pac-12.
Is this the first team to be a national seed despite not winning a conference game?
Well, I don't know. Considering the age of the national seeding process, Probably, because nobody's an independent in baseball.
Not until the Beavers were forced.
Yeah. Florida State is number 9. Mississippi, number 10.
Short break.
Clemson, number 11. Oregon, fuming that their in-state rival is ahead of them.
They have a gripe. They went 4-0 against that in-state rival.
Oregon is in the same boat that UCLA was in softball. They are harmed by being in a bad conference. The Big Ten ain't real good at the diamond sports because, in most of the Big Ten, California and Oregon excluded. Even in Oregon, it's kind of cold, but they don't get the kids that are good at those sports leave.
They don't want to be cold for half the season. Oregon baseball and UCLA softball, victims of the same crime.
But Oregon, number 12 overall seed. Coastal, 13. Tennessee, 14. UCLA, 15. And Southern Mississippi is number 16. By the way, I mentioned earlier, and I think you agree, Elijah, the Coastal Regional, I believe, is the most difficult. Coastal is hosting Fairfield as the 4, and then the 2-3 game is Florida versus East Carolina. The second most difficult is probably Southern Miss getting to host. The Columbia Lions are actually pretty good out of the Ivy, and the 2-3 game in that one is Bama and Miami.
Yeah, that one's pretty low.
That one's pretty difficult as well. Clemson has Upstate. Just a little almost too easy for the committee in that one, to be perfectly honest with you. But
Torrey Craig ain't walking through that door.
No. And the 2-3 in that one is Kentucky and West Virginia. Tennessee will have to get past Wake Forest. That could be interesting.
That could trip them up.
Arkansas has North Dakota State, Kansas, and Creighton. So Mark Kingston as the associate head coach. I forget Creighton's coach that he's taken over for.
Greg McDermott, yes.
That'll be his lad. No, it's not.
Oh, okay. Shoot.
That's the wrong sport.
I was on to something.
But I think Arkansas, that's a pretty good run. Auburn has to worry about NC State and Stetson in their regional. They're good. They're good. LSU gets Little Rock, Dallas Baptist, and Rhode Island. If LSU doesn't win, stop playing.
They will be subject to ridicule.
Look, Dallas Baptist is a good program these days, but LSU, you better win that regional.
Hey, if Dallas Baptist does it, that's just further proof that Conference USA should get auto bids in college baseball.
And I got to tell you,
conference champions.
The UCLA regional is an interesting one, if only because there's names there. Fresno is the 4. And we know that there was a time about 20 years ago when Fresno was the 4 and they won a national title.
They've done something.
And then Irvine and Arizona State, 2 big-time baseball programs, will be in that UCLA regional. So
never like seeing the Anteaters as a 3 seed in your region.
That's a difficult one. Florida State also. I mean, Florida State has Bethune-Cookman, Northeastern, and Mississippi State. I mean, State might pose a challenge.
No, I think Northeastern beats State. Northeastern was really good
they were
this
good.
year.
Yeah.
Northeastern was really good. Not even being facetious here.
No, they're the 2.
That was a really good baseball team this year.
They're the 2. So there you go. And again, Coastal has Fairfield and then Florida and East Carolina. I think Florida's going to win that one. We talked about it earlier. Coastal was really excited because they announced just the hosts first, and then we get the full bracket the next day. And Coastal was like, woohoo, we're going to host. And then you see Florida, and you're like,
the mood in that room, shifting a little bit.
And East Carolina. Again, Florida and East Carolina play. One of them is going to win, and one of them's not. And that winner's going to play Coastal. And then the other guy's going to go like, well, hey, we got to lose again. So I'm not going to be stunned if Coastal gets out of their own regional.
No. Really good baseball team.
But
they're awesome.
I expect Florida to win the Conway Regional.
Are you jumping on the Coastal Carolina bandwagon with no South Carolina in this tournament?
No.
I am. That's what I'm pulling for.
Should I jump on somebody's bandwagon?
You should. I vote we jump on a bandwagon for this tournament. And I've already claimed Coastal, and you already said no.
Yeah,
So
I've said no. No, I'm not doing that.
Stuck your nose
Well,
up.
I guess, I mean, I guess around here, some people may think I'm being like a heretic if I said Florida, so I won't do that either. Give me a minute. You know what? Give me Wake Forest. What the heck?
Yeah, okay.
I like Tom Walter.
I like Tom Walter, too.
So let's do that. All right. We come back. It's Jay versus the internet, but I also have a question that I want all of you to think about that we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I'm gonna bring up a question which won't have anything to do with Jay versus the internet. At least not yet.
Part of that, yeah.
Maybe later. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Mentioned earlier that a lot of times this long holiday weekend's a chance for folks to get some stuff done around the house. Maybe if it's time for you to do some home improvements or to consolidate high-interest debt, consider a home equity line of credit from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're local. They're not-for-profit. They've been in business since the 1930s, so they know what's up across the Midlands of South Carolina, and their home equity loans can offer you great low rates plus lower closing costs and application fees than the big banks. And what does that mean? Well, it means more money for you to spend on your home. And you can unlock that equity over a 10-year draw period, so you could get the kitchen done now, a bathroom done later, maybe put a deck out back, whatever it is that you need to do. You can get it done and not have to worry about paying for it all at once. To apply today, just visit palmettocitizens.org or stop into any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. My wife and I, remember, has been really thrilled with the service we get. Think you'll love them too. Check them out. That's Palmetto Citizens. Sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see me looking out the window. There's a Labradoodle out there. I was like,
Oh, there is.
Yeah. Somebody's walking their dog down here in downtown Columbia. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah, the post-game show. Final few minutes here. Jay versus the internet coming up. I might throw this out tomorrow. Please try to remind me, Mr. Campbell. I might throw this out in the form of a poll question for tomorrow's program. Would you rather, this is really from an SEC perspective, but we could probably look at this, I guess, from a Big Ten perspective as well. Would you rather have 4 automatic qualifiers and harder schedules, or straight seeding and status quo scheduling? Don't answer now. Thought exercise for tomorrow and beyond.
I already have my answer. I guess we'll know tomorrow.
And I wish I could. I guess there's an option C of what, Jay. Why can't we have straight seeding and harder schedules? But hey, I'm all for that. But
Apparently that's too hard.
Yeah, and you're not going to get everybody to go for that. Again, Coach Saban's the one who said, let's just play everybody versus everybody, not literally a round robin, but like if you're in the Power 4 conferences, then that's who you play. I'm down with that.
Be cool.
I'm here for that.
Would be nice.
Yeah. In the meantime, let's get to this. It's rigged. It is totally working against me.
I would think the same thing too if I was 6-15.
Rigged.
And the internet went a perfect 3-0 on
Whatever.
Friday.
Internet doesn't know.
3-0, cashing in on the Pacers, not just covering but winning. The Oilers winning, and Ronald Acuna
Houston
doing his thing.
Oilers. Houston Oilers.
Close, and that might be why you're 6-15.
Number 1.
Yeah, these are the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky.
He did. He was an Edmonton Oiler.
Mark
Not
Messier?
anymore. Was an Edmonton Oiler.
Grant
Not
Fuhr?
anymore. Was an Edmonton Oiler. Not anymore.
There's a few of those dudes I used to remember, but I can't anymore. I got the big ones.
But for today, and of course, we're going to let you go first.
All right.
Because, well,
Been going first for like all but 2 of these days.
Oh, maybe by the end of the summer, we'll have that bad boy turned around. Pacers, Knicks tonight. Game 4. Pacers are 2.5-point favorites.
Give me the Pacers.
The internet with a 60% to 40% edge here. Also going Pacers. So you can improve the record, maybe not gain much ground.
Yeah, I won't gain if I just even it out. I mean, I could sit here and just like choose whatever they choose and still stink. I've got to really.
You're six back right now. You've got to get wins.
Yeah.
Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers. Oilers of Edmonton up 2-1 in the series. This game is in Edmonton tonight. Do they take a 3-1 lead back to the States?
No.
Oh, he says we're getting tied up.
Give me Dallas.
Jay takes Dallas. The internet with a 60 to 40 close vote say Oilers.
Okay, there you go. See, there's one.
There's one. And lastly, I got a little fun with this one.
Got to win at least.
There are 4 options here.
Oh boy.
Who scores the most points tonight between Tyrese Halliburton,
Okay.
Pascal Siakam, Karl Anthony Towns, and Jalen Brunson?
Give me my boy Pascal Siakam.
You went from Pascal Siakam denier to full-on embracing Pascal Siakam.
He scored 30-something.
He had 39.
Yeah.
He was in game 2. He was the leading scorer.
Yeah. Yeah, give me Pascal. Yes, there was it. For those who don't know, yes, there was a time when, I knew, not really. But funny story, again, when Kawhi and the Raptors were in the NBA Finals, or in the playoffs at least, I don't think it was all the way to the finals, and I was asking Pearson Fowler, like, who else is on that team? He said, but Pascal Siakam's good. And I was like, you just made that up.
Denied his existence, and now you're banking on him to gain ground because the internet with 37% say Jalen Brunson.
Okay. All right, there's a chance for me to gain some ground. So.
From Siakam denier to
now,
beneficiary.
what if somebody else, how does that one work if we both lose? They just a loss?
Then you both lose.
Okay. Well, that's something.
It do be that way sometimes.
Good stuff today. Appreciate y'all. Do it again tomorrow.